Welcome to today's program. Today we have guest Elaine Sawler, who is the author of the book Beyond the Fog. Thanks for joining us today, Elaine. Elaine, to start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become maybe involved in this project?
Innocently enough, I retired from teaching about 11 years ago, and I decided that it would be a good time to just look into my family roots, my family history. So that's what I did. I just began as a simple little genealogical project.
So from 1758 until now, you taught school. You thought, okay, I'm going to find out a little bit about my history or my ancestry. Where did you even start?
Well, I had spent a lot of time in Louisbourg when I was a teenager. I loved it out there. I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandparents, and I thought, well, that's where I'd like to start.
Mm-hmm.
So that I was researching the Kennedy family.
Okay, and that's the Kennedy is one of the original families in Louisbourg. After 1758, the ones that sort of remain behind to continue on with their lives.
Yes, they arrived in Louisbourg around 1772.
Okay.
They were Irish fishermen, and there was a lot of fishing going on in Louisbourg at that time. Irish merchant Lawrence Kavanagh was there, and they were probably working for him, and after he left in 1777, they remained right on site.
Okay, and sort of began their lives, and then that's where we pick up. And back to you, just to you hadn't written a book before. This is your first?
Oh, no. That's right, absolutely.
It was a number of years in the making.
The research was a number of years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
I had no intention of writing a book.
Okay.
That was something that evolved. I had so much research done, and last year was the 250th anniversary of the final siege in 1758.
Yes.
Last summer. So it seemed as though that would be a good time to put some of the research that I had together. The Old Town Reunion Committee were planning a reunion, and wanted something that would be appropriate to offer the people who were coming home. And we thought that if I just put some of my research together, it would be interesting and something to look forward to.
Okay, because basically we would all be in that same position. We know a little bit of our history, but not maybe really in depth. A lot of stories have been lost over the years. Families move and move on. So probably it was a great resource to people coming from away or people that did have connections. Did you intend for it to be this resource of information, or was it again just something that you wanted to save, that it wouldn't be lost?
Yeah, something that I wanted to save. It evolved. I was working on the research. Actually, I had gone back about 2 or 3 generations with my own family, with the Kennedy family, and I couldn't get any further. I couldn't get beyond this Joseph Kennedy, my great-great-grandfather. So I thought if I began to research some of the other families out there, maybe I would find a connection. So before long, I had amassed all of this information, and then I was working with Bill O'Shea. He was working at the park at the time, with Parks Canada, and he encouraged my research. He was also very interested in the community, and he just wanted to, somebody who would be doing a little bit more. He encouraged that. Then I began to find there were pictures in the archives. Bill showed me, and archivist Heather Gillis brought out all of these wonderful photographs that were taken in 1968 when the families were being expropriated, when all the homes were being. So I had a photograph of every single home out there. Then Heather showed me the photographs from the 1920s, and Bill explained that the expropriation in the 1960s was the second expropriation of Louisbourg. The first one occurred in 1928. So now I had all of these wonderful pictures, and I thought, well, this is a great way to start tying everything together. The photographs from the 1928 photographs from Fort Louisbourg, I didn't know where they would fall into place exactly. So a lady by the name of Kathleen Pope MacDonald was still living. She was just about to turn 90. She was born in Fort Louisbourg, and
one of the older families.
And she dearly remembered exactly where every home was.
Amazing.
So I saw her in October. She took all of the family photographs. We looked at them. She said, now this one, they were here, this one was here. She'd tell me a little bit about them. I was madly writing down everything she was saying. So I had them all. I had the names. I had exactly where they belonged. Kathleen died in December. I had a 2-month window to meet her and to get all of this information. She was probably about the last person who could have showed me exactly where everything would have been. So that was a blessing.
What an amazing journey to have it work out that way.
Exactly.
To find out. Now, if we talk about the publishing, and being this is your first book, you've collected this information. Now you have a direction. You can tie everything together with the 2 expropriation and all the families and the photographs. What was your next step? How did it come to be this book that we have?
Well, I did approach a couple of publishers, but the time frame was much too short. I had 18 months when I finally decided that I wanted to put it together into a book, and that was just too tight it takes years.
From conception to the actual book. We think that it can be instant, but it's not. No. It's a long process.
It's a long process. They actually told me that the product would have to be completely finished and ready for print at least a year before publication.
Yes, which many people would never be aware of that type of
had
time
no
constraint.
idea.
Yes,
no idea. And in fact, this book was I was still making corrections as I was handing it in for printing. So
that must be
so
the
we certainly didn't have a year.
We're going to take a break. Join us after this break. Welcome back. Elaine, we were talking a little bit about how the book came to be. Now, on a scale of, say, maybe 1 to 10, how hard was it from the idea of the book to the final product?
Probably a 12.
A 12. So that leads me to my next question. You mentioned in the book that you had so many photographs and quite a bit of information. Do you have enough to do maybe a second book, or would that ever be something that you consider in a different direction of stories or?
There are a lot of things floating around in my mind, but I think after I had to have a little bit of
a break,
time off.
Well, fair.
After that.
Yeah, because I know we did get, and that brings us into the book, little bits and pieces from families, from stories, and I know I had the opportunity in the summer to go on the tour where you took us through the fortress itself, the grounds leading up to the fortress, and to really point out where the homesteads were, of homes that were expropriated. So maybe if you start in the 20s, how did that idea come about? Where did the expropriation start? How did they choose the families? What happened there?
In the 20s, there had always been a lot of interest in the fortress. Right from 1758, visitors had been coming, and the people who were living in the fortress were always experiencing people traveling in, coming, wanting to see exactly where this old French fortress had been. So by the 1900s, the interest was growing, and by the 20s, the federal government realized that it would probably be a good idea to clear the area of the homes that were there and clean the area up, and just allow the people to come and see the ruins.
Okay.
So that was the beginning in the 20s.
So at that point, because, and again, you would have to, from your sources and your research, was there much of the fortress intact, or even, you're calling it ruins, so what was there of the fortress? Yeah,
not so much the fortress, certainly not anything what we see today, no. It was ruins, the rubble was there, the foundations were there.
Okay.
And, but the amazing part was that people didn't realize that there were homes there for 170 years.
Yes.
Before the 20s.
Yeah, that was their grandparents' home, their family home.
Exactly.
I know in the book it talks about their sheep roaming around through the fortress and things like that. So that they were living there. That was their life. All of their history right there. And then the government decided this is something we really need to preserve.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was the beginning. That was the first expropriation. And they simply there were 12 families who were moved out, and they were living right in the fortress area. The cover of the book has a photograph of the homes that were there before the 1928 expropriation. And even the animators on site today don't realize a lot of them don't really remember that there
they
were
wouldn't.
homes there.
I talked to one of the people that did work for Parks Canada for many, many years, and she actually said that on the tour. I had no idea that this history, we focus so much on what happened in the siege and, in the fort and what happened itself, but we forget a little bit about the people that lived there, and really their giving up of their homes is sort of to preserve this monument that we have that's the fortress today. Now, there were 12 families originally that were moved.
There were 12 families on site moved out in 1928, yes.
But as time progressed, you talk about, they realized this is a much more expansive project than we thought. And now we fast forward up to 1960s, and they're starting to think, okay, what's happening now?
The mines were beginning to falter, and tourism was becoming more important, and the federal government realized that it was an opportune time to reconstruct the fortress. And I think it was probably a good thing, for many, many reasons, for many, many people. But it was time to expropriate then around the harbor. If they were going to develop the fortress on site, and if they were going to develop the lands around, then it was time for a much more extensive expropriation to occur. And at that time, 24 square miles were expropriated. That's a lot of land, a lot of property.
It is. And now that encompasses a lot more families. So in total now, how many families do we have that have been expropriated?
In the book, I address 81 properties altogether.
Wow.
That includes the 12 from on site. And the communities of Kennington Cove and Deep Cove were also expropriated at that time, and parts of Havenside and Big Lorraine as well.
Okay. Now, there were families that were expropriated twice.
Yes.
Not just the once, they've now been uprooted again for the second time.
The second time, yes. Quite a few of the families who were in the fortress area in the 1920s just moved across the harbor to the north shore, and their properties fell under expropriation a second time.
The second time, thinking they were just on the outskirts, but not quite. So physically, what happened to their homes? In the 1920s, what happened?
In the 1920s, some of them were moved across. Parts of some homes were moved in whole. Some were moved in part and used as a basis for the reconstruction of the new homes.
Yes, which would be that would be commonplace.
Yes, very much so.
The materials
were never wasted.
No,
no.
Reuse.
That's right.
Which is a good model.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle. That's right.
So they were doing that. But so some of the homes were physically destroyed. Is that correct?
On site, you mean?
Yes.
Well, some of them were very old. Some of them were just not possible to move across. So they were destroyed. They were leveled and burned and cleaned up. One gentleman was retained as caretaker, and it was his job to remove all the fences, remove barns and sheds and anything that wasn't going to be taken, and to just make the property as neat and clean as possible. The sheep were even employed as lawnmowers.
I did. I read that. I thought, yes, and why not?
Why not? Exactly.
Some of the homes then that were built within what we know as the fortress today, and over the actual foundations of the old rubble, were there not homes that were actually constructed on the ruins? Right on the ruins, right inside. One family of Pope, but their home was built right within the demi-bastion of the Dauphin demi-bastion. So they have quite a bit in history that again the book has brought to light. We're going to take another break, Elaine. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us. Again, we're in our final segment of Beyond the Fog with Elaine. Elaine, before the break, we talked about in the 1920s what physically happened to the homes of the 20s. Now we're in the 60s. What happened with these homes?
A lot of them took their homes with them. I think 17 homes were moved in all, but the rest were burned. The rest were destroyed. A lot of them were older homes that weren't portable. They couldn't take them. It wasn't practical, and the easiest way was to just simply burn them where they were.
Amazing.
So that,
and that actually happened with the church.
Yes.
Now, I think it was 1901, 1905, you know, there was a church being built, a glebe house, a school, all of these things. They obviously didn't think that that was going to be something that was going to happen. They didn't foresee that at that time.
No.
So some of those had fallen, you know, ill repair, and they were destroyed. But some buildings that were moved, or some homes, are actually still in existence today.
Yes.
What streets would they be on in Louisbourg? Is it on the main street?
Almost anywhere you would look in Louisbourg, you'll find some of them are on the main street, some of them are on some of the side streets, some of them moved into Catalone. Some of them moved out to the highway,
isn't it?
Yes, it
you know,
is.
And that the people living there today can have this kind of connection to the past as well. Your book, obviously, a very big project. Do you ever think of yourself as, you know, I wish I could go back in time? What would you want to find out in regards to the book?
Well, I don't know so much. Well, I'd love to go back in time. I think I would really love to go back and talk
You'll
to
know
this
who's
great-great-grandfather. I feel I know them all.
Yes, yes.
I think sometimes I know the people back in the 1800s better than I know the people today.
Well, and no wonder, with that type of research, and sort of, you'd have to wrap your mind into connecting who's who.
Yes.
And in finding out what details did you find harder to obtain? I know you spoke in the book that it was your own family, but was there anything that you felt, oh, if I just knew that?
Well, right from the beginning, this great-great-grandfather was a real project with me, trying to find where he came from. And I still, although I know where he came from, I know he came from Little Lorraine, I still don't know who his parents are. You know, absolutely, completely.
Yes.
I pretty much guess who I think, who I'm
Yes.
pretty sure they are, but I would just love to go back
So
there
you
and
could
have a
find
little
those
chat.
things. Yes, and I understand that. Now, again, with the book, and I know I mentioned about more information and more stories, but could you share a couple of stories from the book, maybe about the Westgaters?
Oh, they were wonderful. The two families were not moved. They were on site, but they were outside of the gates of the fortress.
Okay.
So those two families remained from 1928 until the 60s, isolated over there by themselves. One family had a number of children in the family, and they would run down to the gate. The gate was kept closed during the day, even during the day, nighttime, of course, and they would run down to the gate and open the gate for the visitors who were coming.
Okay.
Rather than having to get out of their vehicles, the visitors loved to have the gate open for them and would
Sure.
toss a few coins to the children. So they were making a rather lucrative little living for themselves.
Yes, because whether it was a nickel or a dime at that time, that
Exactly.
would buy pop and
yes,
treats,
buy lots.
and that would be quite a big thing.
Quite a big thing.
For them. There was another family, and in the end, the gentleman had 21 children, and only two families remained,
Yes.
or two children
Two
from
children.
that family. So as much as we see now people moving away, really it was always that way.
It was always that way. I was told that this gentleman wanted to give his children, of course, a better chance at life a bit. And the boys, as they were coming into their teens, he would take them down and apprentice them with ships in the harbor, with captains. And so most of his children sailed, became sailors, became mariners, and left Louisbourg, yes.
Yeah. But again, still with the roots to it. And the book will be a great resource if they ever have that interest to find out a little bit about their history. Now, if I wanted to purchase a book, how would I go about that at this point?
At this point, City Printers in Sydney have copies of the book.
Okay.
They did the printing of the book. They were
Okay.
fabulous and wonderful to me, and they've got to have a few copies. Peggy McAdam has some at the Curiosity Shop on Charlotte
Yes,
Street.
okay, all right.
Yes, and then of course they can always contact me at home.
Okay, good. Now, I like in the book that there's a lot of genealogy taking, place in the book as far as being able to trace some things. Do you get calls from around the globe now looking for information? Are you sort of that reference point for people now?
Well, I guess it will become that. I've even had contacts from as far away as Australia since the book has gone to print, which is totally just amazing to me that people that far away would even know about it.
Yes, and have interest
And
in
have
it, and
interest in it.
serious interest
Yes,
that
yes.
they want to pursue this.
Exactly.
Well, the fortress now, the amount of visitors that they receive in a year, and what they're looking at. And this is sort of the little story behind the scenes of the fortress, and it is very interesting. And I find the book maybe will end up being the monument to those people that had such a big part in it, unwillingly at times, I'm sure, or unbeknownst to them, but certainly a big part.
That's right. The fortress themselves have been very supportive of my research and my endeavors, and they did purchase 150 copies, and they are for sale in the fortress gift shop too.
Wow.
So that's that. I thought that was really wonderful, and they realized that that this is a segment of Louisbourg that hadn't been researched, hadn't been looked at, and it's important too. The fortress, of course, is a wonderful thing. It's the main thing. It is Louisbourg, and we can't overlook that.
No.
But there were other people there. There were other lives there at the same time.
Well, it is. As the fortress came into being, that's why Louisbourg is there, obviously.
Exactly.
Talk to us a little bit more, maybe share a couple more stories before we're done. You had a fun one earlier that we spoke about. Tell us a little bit about that.
There was... The book has taken on a life of its own. It's gone off in directions that I never ever really thought about or realized.
Yes.
But there was a slight mention about a family in the book, just a passing mention about a mom and dad who had passed away when they were young, and left 9 children. And this would be. In those days, the children were separated. They were brought up by family members or relatives, and each one would go to a separate home, and that would be commonplace. It was just the way it was. And so the children knew of each other and were in contact with one another, but they didn't grow up together, and they didn't really realize. So one family purchased the book, and one lady is still living. She's just about to turn 91. And the family spoke to her about her mother and father. She was only 9 when they passed away, and she didn't know a great deal, but she had a picture of her father, an old tin-type picture that she had carried with her all these years, and she began to share it with her children and her grandchildren. They wanted to know more, so they took the book and went to speak to the parish priest in Louisbourg, who kindly looked up all the records of all the birth dates of all the children. There were 13 of them.
Oh my goodness,
altogether. 4 had passed away as infants, and also determined approximately where the mom and dad would be buried. There was, of course, no headstone because there was no money to put in a headstone and no one to put it. They were only children. So they had a headstone placed in the graveyard, and with the birth and death dates of the mom and dad, plus they added the names of all 13 children. They're not buried there, of course. They've been gone across the globe, but they added the names to the headstone. And at the bottom, the thing that touched me the most was they had "May the gentle winds blow from beyond the fog."
Of course, the starting point.
The starting point for them, for the book, and then they added "Placed there by your loving daughter Anastasia." But it was, to me, it was just a wonderful outcrop of the book, I guess.
Definitely. Thank you very much for coming with us
thank you so
today
much
on
for
this
having
journey
me.
beyond the fog, and thank you for watching. We'll see you the next time.